In this webinar, we're going to do a deep dive into the new hardware replacement extra that was introduced in December with the release of AllSight 8.0. There are a few different ways that you can use the tool, from just simply calculating the replacement cost and projecting that out over the next few quarters and years, to actually stepping through the replacement process on a computer by computer basis. You might be swapping out computers, copying out the asset data, and saving that summary of changes to the asset records themselves. So rather than trying to hit you with everything all at once in one view, what we're actually going to do is step through the process a number of different times, kind of outlining a simple and then an intermediate and then a more comprehensive way to use the hardware replacement extra. So actually, before we jump into the UI here, I want to make sure you know how to get here. And the first step in that is actually under settings. There's this extras tab here. If you don't see that, it may be that your account doesn't have access to it, and someone with access to it would need to come in here, find the hardware replacement, and just check this box to install it. And then when you refresh your browser window, that's when you'll see it show up. If you don't have the extras tab, it will show up, and then the hardware replacement extra will be there. So that's how you install this and kind of gain access to it. And when you first get here, you may see some numbers for calculations. I've kind of set this up for the webinar and just to kind of introduce you and describe this page. At the top, we've got 3 different drop downs. Currently, this is only going to allow you to project costs for computers or anything in the computers table. Devices are not yet supported. So this grouping is for computers only currently, and you can do by division, which I think is typical, but you could also use the department field, the managed by field, or group computers by the current model so that you're replacing all of a given model with a new replacement model. We're going to stick with the division for this example. I think that probably is going to be most common, especially in like a higher ed environment where you might be doing computer labs or computer groups that are all identical. But it's going to function the same way regardless of what you choose. And then, of course, you've got the time period here with quarters, years, or months as options. I think quarters, again, is probably most common. We're going to use that. And then the show counts. This allows you to choose between counts, cost, and then you can put them both on the screen. It kind of expands that. I think for the sake of this demo, I'm going to mostly use cost, but we're going to start with counts just because I want to be able to see how many computers are in the divisions that we're looking at. And then the other thing to be aware of is that you can scope this page. So if I come up to the scope up top here, just like anything else, I can choose a section and filter down. It's going to adjust the totals and kind of scope that page just to the computer group you choose. I could go all the way down to a specific division if I wanted to just use this page to look at one division at a time. I'm going to get rid of the scope for now, though, but that allows you to adjust this bottom line cost based on the computers that are included on the page here. As I said, we're going to step through this a couple of times. And the first approach here we're going to take is just the most basic. We're trying to get a cost for a specific group of computers during a certain quarter. I've got one already configured. So if I switch to cost now, we'll see that this computer group has a 39,000. I can click on this division and get that list of computers, and we'll step through that here a little bit more in a second. But I just want to show you that when you click on either one of these columns, now we're looking at just the breakdown for Q3 2024, and we see a total for that. I can download a CSV file that represents those numbers. So there's that CSV. And then again, if I come back out to the main extra, I could also select a specific division or a specific cell here in the table to get that computer list. That calculation can be made based on a number of different potential fields. And the most basic of those, if I click on this cell here, if I look at this computer list here, and I can expand this for the sake of getting just that basic cost, you can see that there is this current column here that shows the current computer name and the current computer model. And then on this replacement side is all the information about the replacement time and the replacement computer and model. What's going on here is we've just got replacement dates and a specific replacement cost. And if I expand this view and we look at this first computer, we can see there's no model. This is just a cost, and it says that this cost is based on a specific replacement cost, and then the date is a specific replacement date. So if I go into this individual computer record and we look at the purchase tab, there's those two fields. This replacement date and replacement cost field in this computer record are all that's really necessary to include this computer in that calculation and make it a part of that total. And in fact, when we talk about the other dates and costs that might be applied, this is the priority. This is the top level. If you've populated a replacement date, then that's the column it will show up in. And if you populate a replacement cost, then that's the cost that will be used, regardless of any other factors that we talk about. So the simplest approach to using this hardware replacement extra is to choose a division, and I'll just stick with the one we've got. Select the computers, and you can use key commands here. So Command A is going to select all. I can right click and quick edit. And if I populate a replacement date and a replacement cost in quick edit here, assuming all of these computers are going to get the same replacement date and replacement cost. So using these dates, this date and this cost, and we apply that, that's really all that I did to get this number calculated for this computer group. So I could step through and do this for another computer group. We can see that it's basing this one on the warranty date and the replacement model cost for this model. The goal here, as you step through, is to be able to get these cost projections over the time periods. So when you approach this, depending on what data might already be in these records, you might have to go into a record and make some adjustments or clean things up to either remove them or make sure they show up in the proper location for the calculations and the projections. So we've got this Anderson 302 division set for Q3 of 2024. We see a replacement cost that's based on just that simple population of the replacement date and a replacement cost field that's a part of the individual computer records. So that's kind of the most basic, simple approach. Other ways you might populate some of those fields could be through our Jamf or Intune integrations. There are warranty dates and other ways that replacement cost might be calculated. So again, if you come to this page for the first time and you see some numbers, what you want to do is select that computer group, and then you can see here in the replacement side what data is being used and what cost is being used. And from there, you can go in and either clean things up or make changes to make sure that the calculation that's being performed is the one you want. Okay, so secondary approach to this. Let's say you wanted to take this a step further and not just get a replacement cost, but you actually have some decisions to make. You don't know what the replacement cost is going to be because you need to base the cost on a specific computer model that you're replacing this current set of computers with. So this tool allows you to do that. We're going to take a step to this models page, which is also new in 8.0. So we're leaving this hardware replacement extra behind for a second, and we're coming under settings down to models. And what you're going to see on this models page is probably nothing on your server currently, but the ability to create computer models that are not specific computers, but are what is available from a vendor. You'll be able to either import or manually create models that you can use as options that you're going to choose from to replace your current computers. So this is where this gets a little bit more complex. And so I want to make sure it's clear. This models page is totally separate from the computers page. And these models are not referencing specific computers with a serial number or computer records within the system. These are just model records that have a lot shorter list of fields available to them, and they are used as options to select from when you are making your choices about replacing current computers. So you can import to this page, and the imports work exactly the same way as imports on the computers page, the devices page, or the purchases pages. In the web interface, you can do that just by coming up to this three-dot menu, choose Import Models. You would drag a CSV file in. The CSV file just needs to be formatted where the first row at the top are the column labels, and then the data below is one row per model. And then when you import it, it's going to look just like you see on this models page. Now, another thing I've done here is I've customized some of these columns. So let's talk about that a little bit. If you haven't seen it on any of the other pages, this is true for computers, devices, and purchases as well. This icon under your username up top is going to allow you to customize the arrangement of the columns across the top of the page. And I've chosen these just because they seem like the most useful ones when you're making those decisions about what to replace a current computer with. And then I've grouped these by manufacturer. So you see Apple, Asus, Dell. You can group by any of the visible categories here. And then the last thing I want to show you that's also new in 8.0 is that these views can be saved. So I'm going to actually save this view. We'll call this my default models view. I'm going to click this save button. And now if I do make any other changes to this page and click OK, it readjusts things, but I can go back and select my default models view, click OK, and it arranges them the way they previously had been arranged when I saved it. So that's great for this models page. It's also cool for computers, especially. It works on devices and purchases pages as well. So what I can do here now is I can sort by costs. I can sort by form factor, since I'm looking at perhaps desktops to replace lab computers with. And I can see from here the different kinds of computers available and other hardware attributes for the models I'm choosing from. And now let's just take one, for example. I'm just going to copy this value so that I've got this computer name copied to my clipboard. And now if I come back to the hardware replacement extra and we go into a new division, and I'll work with this faculty staff division here. At this point, again, I can select all if I want to make adjustments in bulk, or I can select a single individual computer, and I can right click, I can choose quick edit. And from here, I'll get rid of these pre-selected fields. And what I want is to choose the replacement model. I'm going to find the replacement model field in this. It's already pre-populated, but what I would normally do here is come in and paste that in, select it from the list, apply it, and then when I click OK, it's going to include it in the calculation. So this fact staff computer that we saw at the top of this list, that's why we've got a replacement cost. So if I go into this individual computer, I can see there is no replacement date or replacement cost. Instead, I've got a link to a replacement model. So this is, again, kind of that more intermediate approach to managing this. We went from a division level approach where I selected everything all at once and linked or populated a specific replacement date and a specific replacement cost for all of the computers at once using quick edit in the first example, to now for something like a faculty staff division, or if you're going through and making individual decisions for specific users, where you're not just going to replace all of the computers with the same thing necessarily, but you're stepping through and choosing computer by computer, user by user, maybe based on utilization or the software that the different users choose. You might go through and each individual computer might get a different replacement model selected and associated. So for this second division that we're looking at, this faculty staff division, totally different approach that we might take. Now, again, as far as projecting out the costs, I can see that here. I could come up and scope this to just that faculty staff division and just get the total for what I've done for that and export that. So when it comes to cost projection across those time periods, that's kind of still that basic way. I just need a number, and I need to make these decisions in order to get that number and associate those numbers. And again, as I've said a couple of times here, there is a list of dates and a list of costs that can be used to calculate that number. So I'm going to drop into the chat window something, and I hope it doesn't create confusion. I think it's important to at least have and be aware of, because when you're looking at this spreadsheet view and you see various numbers listed here, those numbers can be calculated based on warranty date or based on a service date or a purchase date. And you want to know what the hierarchy is. You can always click in and look at an individual computer to see what the calculation is based on for that computer. We go back in here, it tells you this date here is based on the replacement date. This cost is based on this replacement cost, but that's on a computer by computer basis. When you're at the spreadsheet view and you've got the totals, it's important or good to know what are the options. Where could this number be coming from? So I'm going to paste in the chat window now kind of the hierarchy or the list of dates that can be used and the list of costs that can be used in the order that they're chosen, sort of in the priority list. So specific replacement date you see and specific replacement cost are top priority. Those are part of the individual computer records. They're on the purchase tab, and they're very easy to just drop a date in, drop a cost in. You're not linking it to models. You're not doing anything else beyond that. And those dates are the top priority. If there is a warranty date and there is a base model cost or another cost that we'll talk about here in a second, then you might get a calculation on this page, and it may or may not be what you want to see. So you can use the lists that I pasted there to see which ones are used and what is the priority in the list for the dates and costs. So the next step in this process. So again, we've kind of looked at two approaches. One is just populating the date and cost and getting a quick and easy number at the division level based on the quarter the replacement is going to be. And then for this one computer, we linked it to a model, and we talked about how to create those models. Actually, I talked about how to import them. The other approach is to manually create them. Click this plus up top, give it a name and a type, which is this primary list of categories, to create it. And then once it's created, you can either use quick edit. Let's say maybe you created 2 or 3 and they're all very similar. I can use quick edit to update and modify multiple models at once. Or if I'm doing these one at a time, I can click and go into the record, go into edit mode, and populate any additional details about a specific model that I want to have available to choose from. So that's the way you can go in to create the models that you can then use to associate with the computer groups. So again, I'm going to come in here to this faculty staff division, and we can see here that depending on the computer, we've got different dates being chosen as this replacement date. So some of them have a service date, some of them have a warranty date, and that's all that's really necessary. But again, if you want to be specific about when each computer is going to be replaced and base it on something other than those dates, you can always go in and update that replacement date field for the computers. And again, similar, there's no cost available. This one has a replacement cost based on the linked model. And I linked that just by right-clicking, choosing quick edit, adding the replacement model field, and then pasting in or typing the name of that model and selecting it from this list. When I apply that, then the additional details about that replacement model get populated, including the cost. So now I'm going to take this a step further and not just projecting out the cost, but actually replacing the old computer with the new computer. So we're going to step away from the hardware replacement extra for a second, and we're going to go to the computers page. And we're going to talk about those new computers that are available. So either we have received an asset report that we're importing, maybe the new computers have arrived or they've been added to Intune, and you've got our Intune integration set up to import those records. Or maybe you've imaged the machine and it's ready to go, and you've installed our client, and so the record has shown up in the system because it is available to replace another computer with. What I'm getting at is this hardware replacement tool allows you to step all the way through that replacement process, and I'll show you that. But first, what I want to do is just show you a computer record and how you might take this as far as it goes. So I've got a computer record here. It's a new computer that has come in. It's that model that we were talking about. And one thing that I could do is set what's called the base model. So from here, let me find that base model. So what we're doing here is we're taking this specific computer record that now exists within the system. In this case, it's got our client installed. It's ready to be deployed. The model name here is the one that our client discovers. And on the purchase page, I'm actually linking this specific computer back to the model that I ordered to receive it. So now this computer is linked as its base model to that same model. So base model is the model that this computer started out as, what I ordered to receive it, and replacement model, of course, is the model I'm going to replace it with in the future. So this is the new computer. I've linked it to the base model that I ordered for it. And the reason that I'm doing that, and I can do that in bulk as well, so back here, maybe all of these computers are the new computers that are coming in to replace old computers in a division. I can do quick edit from here and choose that base model. I'm not going to step through and actually do it, but by doing this, I would be linking a group of computers to that one base model, or I could go into the individual computer as I did and link it that way. Okay, so that's all on the computers page, and we're talking about the new computer records themselves that have now been received and are in the system. Coming back to hardware replacement, I'm going to go back to this faculty staff division, and we're going to continue on an individual computer basis, because now the old computer is being replaced, and we're doing it early. The replacement date is at the end of the year, or maybe beginning of next year, but we're going to step through this process as if it's time. Up in the top right corner here, there is this edit button that's going to apply to this row in the hardware replacement tool. And if I click on that, it takes me to this page where I've got the current computer on the left, including a bunch of different details about the current computer, and as well as the currently installed software on the old computer. And then on the right side, I've got the replacement model has been pre-selected. The cost has been pre-selected because I linked it previously. If I go back out one page here and we choose a computer that hasn't already been linked to a replacement model, I can come in, and now this gives me another opportunity to replace that. If I choose that replacement model, I can do that from here as well. So again, 3 pages here. There's the sort of outside the tool is the spreadsheet view. The next step in is when I select a specific computer group to dive into. And now this is page 2, and I've got the current model, the current computers, and then I've got options for replacement. And then page 3 is when I click to edit a specific computer to actually perform the replacement. Okay. So over here, this computer doesn't have a replacement model, and that's going to be pretty standard when you first start to use this, because your current active computers that are already deployed, that all happened before this process was developed, and these aren't linked back to a base model. But I can see the purchase date if that's been populated. I can give it a salvage value. Maybe I know this computer is going to be worth $500. And then I can choose an end of life action for what we're going to do with this computer, the old computer, now that we're replacing it. Let's say we're going to resell it, and I'll choose that. I've got the information about the computer, including the current user or the user it's assigned to. And then over here, I've got just the model information. But like I said, we're going through and we're replacing this old computer with a new computer. So I can come up here, and this is a replacement status, where if multiple people are involved in this process, you can kind of set this as a temporary status until you've made the decision. And now I'm just going to select accepted, since that's what we're doing. And now I can actually locate a specific computer. Now you see that there's 2 sections to this dropdown. One is all of the computers in the system that I have available to choose from. And at the top of the list is any computer or computers that have this listed as their base model. So that's why I went through that exercise on the computers page of finding the computer first and linking it to that that base model, because the base models that match the replacement model here are going to show up at the top of this list. Now I could do a search here. Let's say this wasn't the one I was looking for, but I wanted to dig a little bit deeper and find it. I can do a search here, go and find the specific computer I want. In this case, I'm just going to choose the one that we're working with up top. Okay, so now I'm looking at a specific computer here on the right that I'm replacing the old computer with. Okay, and this third page of this replacement extra is actually going to allow me, first of all, to change the life cycle stage of the old computer now that I am replacing it. I can set this to retired. And then over here, I can change the replacement computer from stocked, let's say, to deployed, since that's what I'm doing with it. Additionally, on a field by field basis, I can copy the asset fields from the old computer, the computer that's being replaced, over to the new computer. Or if everything's going to be the same, I can just come down here and copy everything over all at once. Okay, so I'm stepping through the process of replacing the old computer with the new computer now. And as soon as I'm ready to do that, everything looks good. I've chosen the correct computer. I've set the fields to be copied. Now I got one more decision to make, and that is this summary that we're looking at of changes. I can actually attach it as a document to the current computer that's being replaced, or I could attach it as a document to the new replacement computer. So I'm stepping through this process. I've made the decisions. I'm ready to perform this replacement. And when I click to commit this, it saves those changes that we talked about to the old computer as well as to the new computer. Now you'll notice if I come out here, there's still an additional step, because we're still looking at the replacement and the old computer is still listed here. Okay, so the reason for that is back here on this hardware replacement page, this is based on the computers that are in that division. And although I made some decisions about the replacement process, that new computer hasn't moved to the new division yet. So we're trying not to push the process too far, and to make sure that as you step through it, you're making the decisions at the right time. When you actually go and deliver that computer to that user and take the old one back, at some point in that process, whether it's automatically using our Active Directory integration or manually on the computers page, you're going to go find that computer that you did that replacement with, now that the replacement has been complete, and you're going to drag it into the appropriate division or When you rename it, it's going to automatically move if you're using rules. Or when you move it in Active Directory, it's going to automatically move to the new division. And then likewise, you might have an action or some other integration using Team Dynamics that might move the retired computer into a retired division after the fact. So I realize that the process here can be fairly complex, and there is a lot of learning to do to kind of understand what steps are being taken in each part of this process. So on the computers page, same as always, the division the computer is in, whether the computer is assigned to a user, most of your hardware asset management functionality is still done here on the computers page. The hardware replacement process, there's two main purposes: simply projecting the cost, and then when you're ready to actually perform that replacement, you can come in on a computer by computer basis or in bulk using Quick Edit and modify relevant fields to copy data over or populate fields in the replacement computers based on the process. This is based on cost projection and decision making. When the actual decision has been made and the time comes to swap that computer out, it's just like you would have done prior to this hardware replacement extra. You've got a new computer, you've got an old computer. If it's being done by Active Directory integration, then you're going to want to make those decisions in Active Directory. If it's done based on manually moving the division, you need to drag a computer into the new division. And if the rule is in place based on the computer name, then when you re-image and rename that stocked computer to the new name to assign it to that user or division, then that automated process is gonna move the computers around. I hope this all makes sense. Definitely feedback, questions, confusions, anything as you step forward in trying to use this that you have, do not hesitate to send us an email. As always, we're happy to help out, hop on a Zoom call and do some one-on-one training and configuration assistance with you. So the goal of this webinar really is just introduce you to it, give you that deep dive and show you how it's intended to be used as it was originally designed, and kind of give you that basic training. Beyond this, one-on-one, as much as you need, just let us know.